Okay, well, welcome everyone on behalf of the Singapore International Film Festival to a little Q&A we're going to be having with the director of the film, The Salt in Our Waters. That director is Rezwan Shahriar Sumit, and I'll be asking him a few questions. I'm Adam Nee, and I'm a dean at LaSalle College of the Arts here in Singapore. So Shumit, thank you for a fascinating film experience that I'm sure many people in the SGIFF audience will want to hear a little bit more about. But maybe first of all, since this is indeed your first feature film, I understand, if that's correct, and you're actually in the midst of filming your second one. Is that why you're out in the forest where you are?
This is actually a short film. I am shooting for a Singapore-based agency, but I have shot many other short films before shooting my first feature, The Salt in Our Waters.
Okay. And could you tell us where it is you are now that you're talking about?
I'm in Madhupur Forest, and this is 4 hours away from the capital city, Dhaka.
And so then, yes, tell me a little more about your filmmaking journey. So you say you have actually shot a lot of short films before going on to this first feature. How did you get started in making short films?
Yeah, so I went to NYU's graduate film program. And at NYU, we had to make one short film almost every semester. And during those filmmaking processes, even though those are student films, we take those films very seriously, and everyone puts in their heart and soul in it. And even the actors who are working, they're very serious about the whole process. And we learn a lot from this process. And one of the key things that I picked up, thanks to my professors at NYU, was that they ask all the grad film students to make their thesis films in their hometowns or their home countries, so that the films feel rooted in a culture, and grounded in reality, and a reality that we are aware of as new or young filmmakers because we grew up there. So that was a very key lesson they gave us. And I guess in my case, when I was writing my first feature, I remembered the day I was sitting in NYU's famous Bob's Library, and I was sitting on the 7th floor. So the view of entire Midtown Manhattan was in front of me.
Looking over Washington Square Park and toward Midtown.
All the way toward Empire State Building, one of the peaks of human civilization. But my heart or mind transported me back to the flatlands of Bangladesh, to the Delta, where in sort of a forgotten outpost of civilization, where these fishermen are fighting day and night to bring fish for us. But at the same time, they have their hopes and dreams, and they have colors in their lives. And that is what fascinated me the most. And how I came to know about this community, I went there back in 2008 for the first time. So this was 5 years before film school. I was very young. I went there as a tourist, but I had a DSLR camera with me. And this was 3 to 4 months after a cyclone. And I saw firsthand how the fishermen had turned things around and sort of rebounded and started going back to fishing in those few months. And that was a lesson in resilience. And they're so inspiring to talk with. And those are some of the memories that stayed with me. And when I was writing, I could write about them, because it was coming from within me. And I had made some really deep connections with those fishermen. So that's very helpful.
So I take it from what you're saying that this feature film is actually your NYU thesis film, in effect. Is that correct?
Yeah. So this is this was part of my NYU thesis package. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But just in terms of a background, how did you get into doing filmmaking to begin with? Why did you end up deciding to, or have the opportunity to go to graduate film school at NYU? I heard you mention you were already a photographer, right? You had a camera out where you were. So is this continuing an earlier interest of yours, or?
Yeah, I actually went to business school. Yeah, so very different track. That's where I got my BBA in marketing. And then I joined an ad agency and I was there for a year. And then 2 years at Western Union, looking after marketing in the South Asian region. So none of this is directly related with filmmaking, but during business school, in the third year of business school, I picked up a tiny handycam and shot a docufiction, a 7-minute docufiction called City Life, and applied to the Berlinale talents with that docufiction, the Berlin Film Festival's talent campus. That's how it was called back then. And they invited me. And once I was in Berlin at the age of 22, I just soaked in that atmosphere. It was so, electrifying and amazing and inspiring. And I remember going to EFM as a young business school student. And I saw that the film industry is so, organized and how things are moving. There are so many moving parts, but it's chaotic, but at the same time, there is, beauty in it. As opposed to where I was from in Bangladesh, there is literally no industry. I mean, even today, I'm talking about 2008. That's when I went to Berlin Talents. Even today, before the Corona pandemic, you can't call this an industry because so few people are making the types of films that I make. And there are some Bollywood copycat films, right. And you know how the industry works in South Asia. So seeing EFM firsthand back in 2008 as a business.
EFM is a film market, yes.
Yeah, the European film market. Film market. Berlin's film market. So that gave me a whole new perspective to this industry, and I was like, I have stories to tell, and I see that there is, a formal functional market for these stories. So maybe my stories can travel internationally and be watched by people. So then that's when I started applying for film schools, because Bangladesh also back then did not have a formal film school. Right. Thankfully, now we have film schools in Bangladesh. So I'm immensely hopeful because of the future of Bangladeshi film, because there are a few people like me, very young filmmakers who are dreaming big. And I feel like together we can change our local film circuit.
Great, and we can tell you are a storyteller, because even telling your own, presenting your own background, that's a great inspirational story of having your eyes opened and finding a new calling. Let's return a little bit more to the feature, the salt in our waters. So you say you were inspired largely by people that you remember, their resilience from your earlier experience, and it's interesting that reflects in that your approach in the film is not, a big disaster or adventure film, but specifically about, it's very character driven, very much focused on the key couple and what their experiences are interacting with the town, beyond just resilience. Right. How they're dealing with their, for example, the difference between for the main character, his background in the city versus the rural life that he discovers. Could you talk a little bit about what you see important in the main character Rudro and also Tuni, for example, and what they represent for you?
Yeah, so the fishing community and the ocean, these were the backdrops where I wanted to set up the story. But the core of the story is a clash of cultures, right? A city guy comes to a rural town, he's first welcomed and embraced, his ideas are embraced by the local people, especially the children. And then when it's kind of apparent that he's shaking up the status quo, the elders, they are like, no, maybe he's not so welcome. He shouldn't be welcome here, and he should go back to his city and things like that. So he's ostracized all of a sudden. So in my story, I have the chairman in one end, very conservative and holding on to age-old traditions. On the other hand, I have the sculptor, the modern artist, who comes with liberal ideas, whose worldview is based on science and facts. And in the middle, the innocent center of the story are the fishermen. So the fishermen sometimes oscillate and go towards the chairman, and sometimes they go toward Rudro. So this is essentially the story, right, in the backdrop of monsoon and Bay of Bengal. But then there's this very interesting character named Tuni, and she makes a friendship with Rudro, and that friendship sort of stays intact throughout the entire film, right? And from the beginning of the film, we see that she's a force of nature, and she knows that there is a world beyond the scope of this fishing village, or what this fishing village can offer her. And she dreams of moving outside of this fishing community and see that world and see what prospects lie for her outside. And when this city guy comes, naturally she, gravitates toward him.
But it's interesting, your description really resonates with the fact, of people oscillating between positions and being attracted to and repelled by. It really resonates with the fact that in your film, even though, yes, you do have the conservative character and the liberal character, the film refuses simple demonization or valorization of any character. Even
Absolutely.
At its close, it's, there's no one side or the other. It's more this dynamic that you show.
Yeah, that was very important. So the chairman, he's very conservative. He's holding on to traditions, but at the same time, he has his own sets of reasons why he does that. Maybe he's the reason why this community is still glued together. Probably he has been protecting this community from city influences, and city influences are not always good, as we have seen, in not only in this community, but in other parts of the world. So maybe he's the one who has been protecting them. So I show both the good and the bad sides of both sides, both the artist and the chairman, and the artist also has its own selfish reasons probably to make art, right? And sometimes his art making process puts his subjects in danger, and does he have moral duties to his subjects, yes or no? So those are kind of the questions that I felt like artists also have to deal with, and even me myself as a filmmaker, I also have to deal with, because with Salt in Our Waters, or through Salt in Our Waters, the world will be seeing this community, but then what happens to them? That is also very important, right? So yeah.
These nuances, these ambivalences really do come across effectively. Now, beyond this focus on the characters and this rich dynamic between them and different communities and that dynamic, there's also another important character in a way in this film, as you've already referred to, is the environment, the spaces, the weather, and also I've seen in online chatter that the notion of environment was important to you. Again, the cyclone experience kind of inspired this in a way. Do you want to talk a little bit about that theme and how you see that playing through the film? Environmental concerns?
Right, absolutely. So Bangladesh is on the front line of the whole climate change, let's call it a debacle. So Bangladesh is on the front line, and these fishing communities are at the front line of that front line. So they are like, you know, the first wave will hit them always. And so there was no way I could ignore how climate change is affecting their lives, because the rise of salinity, change in food habit, and of course the rise of water and more intense cyclones, more intense storms, more intense monsoons. These are all problems they're facing daily. And the result of all these calamities is that there is a rise in superstitions, there is a rise in climate change-induced migration, more pressure on the city, and some of these age-old traditions are getting lost forever because many fishermen have to give up on their fathers or their grandfathers' professions entirely because they can't keep up anymore. Even the change in fish cycle, that is also a result of climate change, right? So lots of changes are happening, and not all of them are good kind of changes.
So in the film, we get the sense that everything is going a bit out of balance, and that in turn affects the relationship with the foreign visitor. But I guess another symptom of things being out of balance, I'm guessing, but maybe you can talk to us a little about it, is this almost surreal specter of this giant tanker stranded on the beach. So first of all, how did you find that object to film it? And then what does it mean for you within the film?
So that giant red shipwreck is actually stuck on the ocean shore. A cyclone, a powerful cyclone, washed it up to the shore, and it has been stuck there for forever. They couldn't salvage it. So it's a real thing. It's not CGI. So what does it represent? To me, I guess it's a reminder that civilization is also in decay, in the way we define civilization needs to be revisited. And yeah, I don't want to, I want the audiences to, interpret it.
Yes.
But yeah, so you see the port in the beginning, right? In the beginning of the film, Rudra is taking his box and he's going from one big port to a small port, and then to the mangrove isle, and then toward the sort of the middle of the film, you get this reminder that even city life or the images or the symbols of city life, those are also in decay. So that's I mean, that's how it, when I was writing it,
right. It does tie that frame back into the center of the film, that the island is not isolated, that the village is not isolated from the rest of what's going on in the world.
Right.
I'm mindful of time, but I want to make sure to bring up another very strong aspect of this film, which really helps drive home all these environmental themes, which is the beautiful look of the film, the wonderful cinematography that really helps it go. I know you have a cinematographer who previously actually worked on a Singapore film, Popeye. That's
yeah, Karsten Tan's film, and my cinematographer's name is Chananung Chotrungroj. She's a Thai DP. We went to NYU together. She was a few years ahead of me academically, and that's how we met. And because she is Thai, they also have a coast, right? And she's very aware of the trials and tribulations of fishing communities. And when I pitched the idea to her, she was instantly hooked. And I remember the day when I took her to that fishing village where we shot. It takes around 12 hours to go there from Dhaka. And she and my production designer both were ecstatic. That's such a beautiful location. But then we were like, how do we shoot a film here? Because there's no running water, no gas, no electricity. There's nothing. So how do we shoot
no crew, no equipment?
Yeah, so we had to bring or create artificially all of that to be able to shoot this film. And it was not easy. And also the shooting process was very difficult because of monsoon, changing clouds. We always had to be, adaptive to changing climate conditions because we wanted the film to look a certain way. So that's why we always had to be mindful of when we will be able to shoot, because sometimes along the shoreline you are shooting and then the tide, it's a big tide, and you have nowhere to go because you have the forest wall and then the water. So you have to wrap and then wait for the water to recede. Things like this happen so many times, yeah.
You want the weather effects for your narrative as well, right? Storms keep coming in and going. And
exactly, but I'm very, very grateful to Chananung Chotrungroj, my DP, and also my production designer for, it was a collaborative effort, and we created that look of the film. And then ultimately, I guess post-production also helps. We did it in Paris because we got the CNC Cinema du Monde, and the colorist, he also brought up the color. You see that's a gray palette. The ocean is gray, the sky is gray, the water is gray, but the characters, they are very colorful. Their costumes, and also overall they're very, very colorful, and that they sort of pop out.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's very effective. The look of the film is very strong. Just again, being mindful of time, I think I'll come to those usual closing questions of where is this film shown and what are your plans for it at the moment?
Yeah, so we have so far had a very warm response. So I'm we're all very fortunate and very grateful to the programmer. So we world premiered in London, the BFI London Film Festival in October. And then we had our Asian premiere in Busan. And then last week we played in Torino, and now we are playing in Singapore. And coming up next is Kolkata's NetPack competition. And also in China, we are going to Hainan Island. So, and we have a few others which we haven't announced yet. So,
and do you have thoughts about how you want to get this out here post festival circuit? That is, to go on some kind of platform or to actually get a theatrical distribution, or?
Yeah, me and my team, we believe that this is a theatrical experience, right? The ocean backdrop, the 5:1 sound, and all of that. So we're gonna have to be a little more patient. I hope the vaccine takes into effect, and post-summer it gets the theatrical circuit, gets back on track. But we will definitely push for theatrical, and we have a sales agent attached, a UK-based sales agent called Film Republic. And together we are sort of strategizing right now. Also, we have attached with us Torino Film Lab because we got the Audience Design Fund, one of the 3 recipients of the fund this year. And that fund helps you get theatrical distribution in three countries in the world. And Torino has been an avid supporter of this project, and I'm also very grateful to them. And they're going to be helping us in 2021 as well.
Well, that's terrific and very deserving, because yes, it really is a film that should be seen in the theater if one can. So I know you have a shoot to get to because you're a busy employed filmmaker, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you for presenting your film to the SGIFF. And sure,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with everyone, and I urge all our audiences to, you know, share your opinion about these films and what you liked about it, and that will help us stay energized, because the pandemic makes things so difficult for independent filmmakers. So I appreciate any support. Thank you.